like they're all wearing their Boy Scout uniforms. So usually we start the council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would like the Boy Scouts to lead us tonight. So if you guys would be so kind to go right behind the podium there and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Make sure you guys look good. You're on camera. Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible.
Thank you very much for leading us, guys. Appreciate it. First thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. I'm going to add a 10A. We have Mr. Price here on the English Street issue. So is there anything else that needs to be adjusted to the agenda? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, the agenda has been approved. First thing on the agenda is the review of the water and electric budgets by Bruce Reimers. And Bruce, why don't you just give us a quick, I know we went over in detail, but for the audience, just a quick recap of both the water and electric budget proposals.
First of all, on the electric department budget.
Bruce, why don't you go to the podium if you would?
You should have just stayed there.
For the benefit of the watching audience, the proposed electric budget for 2016 will involve about 3.6% overall rate increase. Not all rates will be exactly at 3.6%. We've done a rate study this year, and so in order to balance out rates, to keep everybody paying the fair amount, each class of customer paying their share of what it takes to run a utility and to buy its wholesale energy. So each of those rates is affected differently, and in 2016 those will average anywhere from about 2% to about 7%, depending on the type of customer. We're also going to reclassify some of our customers, and what that really does is, depending on the amount of energy they use or the type of customer they are, they will be put into new rate categories. Overall, for the 2016 year, we were talking about a $7.2 million budget, and a lot of the increased costs come primarily from the cost of wholesale energy, which our wholesaler is going to charge about 6% more for the 2016 year. On the water department side, costs have remained really stable, even though our water sales have been down in the past 3 years. We've been able to keep costs pretty consistent and keep our budgets fairly stable. Last year we implemented what we called a CIP fund. We increased rates to cover charges incurred in CIP projects, and this was the first year that we actually got to realize the benefits of having that rate increase last year. And we were able to pay cash for the CIP project that we did in conjunction with the city in the 2015 construction season. And we installed about 1,500 feet of water main and new services, and we were able to pay cash for that this year and not have to bond like we have in the past consecutive almost over 5 years. So Going forward, we do not anticipate a water rate increase for the budget year of 2016, and all rates should remain stable.
Okay. Any questions for Bruce? Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Next on the agenda, Ken, are you going to take this one?
I will. Apologize for my voice if it goes out, so bear with me. Back on the November 2nd meeting, we did have a discussion on the strip of land that you see in the overhead here, just west of First Avenue Southeast, and the council's desire at that time was to dispose of the property at no cost to those property owners. We did get an easement in place over that strip of land. 4 of the 6 property owners that are indicated on the map, they're all in the southern and indicated interest in that. Attorney Scott Riggs did draft an ordinance, which is in your packet, that would convey the property to each of those 4 property owners, not all 6. If the other 2 are interested at a future date, we'll add those deeds to your agenda at that time. But the ordinance basically needs a introduction at tonight's meeting, and then to be approved at next meeting. Could be all recorded for everybody by the end of the year here, which is ideal, considering taxes have to be paid in full to file the deeds and everything. So
Okay.
pretty straightforward on the deed. They each get half split down the middle, and we'll get that recorded. So introduce the ordinance here tonight, and we would finalize that at the last meeting of the year on the 21st.
So Ken, the property owners at 5 and 6, is that going to stay city land then?
That'll stay city land at this point. Still trying to get a hold of them. I don't know.
So it's not going to a different neighbor?
No, it will not. Yeah, we'll keep that open, available for them. I think they will. Just would like to talk to them face to face, and haven't been able to arrange that yet. So
Okay. Any questions?
Will this ordinance cover that in the future, or are we going to have to do it again?
we'll have to do it again at that point in the future. It could involve different property owners. We just don't know at this point.
Okay. Any questions? I guess I look for a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Dave Brusick, second by Amy Jurek. Any other further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, it passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, Ken, are you taking, well,
I will. I'm going to give you a short overview here. Conditional use permit for the CEC, the building we're in, is the first item we'll look at here tonight. Just an overhead overview here. You can see all the bluish green color. It's all residential zoning around here, and educational facilities are a conditional use in this district. So that's why we had to do the review with the addition, minor additions to the areas and some of the changes to the programming at the building. And then some new parking lots and change in parking. So that was the reason why we're reviewing as a conditional use permit here tonight. Planning Commission did review the request at their meeting on November 18th. Again, they're requesting to use this building with some small additions as an educational campus, which will house early childhood education, district offices, the transitions program, and the operations program. An indoor pool will be added on the north side of the building, but that is actually a permitted use in the residential district that we're located in here. The 1923 portion of the building just to the south will be removed, and also the Alternative Learning Center program will move to the building just north of Falcon Ridge Elementary, so that's one of the programming changes. Parking will be expanded quite a bit on the south side for CE staff, and the north side parking will be generally reserved for pool users and gymnasium users, and then we'll comment more on that later, but some of the middle school staff will need to park there, and we'll have designated parking kind of for their lack of parking at the middle school site to have them park on a row, basically on the north side of the pool building there. Again, property zoned RL90, single-family residential, so nothing out of the ordinary for schools. Most of our, actually all of our schools are in residential areas, so A little more background information. We did have 3 members of the public. They were all residents that live right along First Avenue, just on the west side of the building, provide comment. And they ranged from questions about the noise from the loading dock, lighting on the existing building. They thought it was a little bright. Landscaping around the parking lot to mitigate headlights. General just parking where people are going to park. Some people had concerns about traffic on First Avenue Northwest. They thought people might be speeding through the area. I've talked with the Police Chief Garais about that. We'll obviously monitor that as the site is changed to the new uses that are going to be occurring here. Basically, everything was addressed, and one interesting thing that was mentioned, the demo of the 1923 building, some of the residents, there's a lot of bats that go into the tower. So that was one of the questions that came up, so we'll have displaced bat population. But the engineers noted they'll look into that further. Speaking on behalf of the school district, who are also here tonight, is Superintendent Tim Dittburner, Director of Operations Craig Most, and then Eric Linner of Wold Architects. Looks like they have some other representatives here from Wold and the engineering firm as well, should you have any questions specific to those items. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 4-0 of the CUP with 8 findings and 10 conditions in the staff report. I'll run through a couple of photos here for you. The areas that are shown in white on this are existing portions of building. You can see this is the 1923 building that will be demolished. This whole southern area is going to be parking. Small office entryway / office area will be added for the main entry of the new improved CEC building. And then on the very north end, you can see the large dark area here is basically what will be the indoor pool area added on the north end of the gymnasium. The different site plans, same layout. Again, you can see the main entrance addition, pool addition, and this shows the layout of the parking areas. There's good circulation for drop-off and pickup for both early childhood and then obviously the main portion of the CC gymnasium area here. Parking up by the entrance of the existing gymnasium will remain pretty much the same. We obviously lose a bit of parking by the pool addition area, but again, the placement of the parking here will be advantageous for staff. We should not have people parking out on the road any longer, and that was actually one of the conditions of approval, to have staff be required to park in the parking in the lots, not on the street. And with the way the entrances are being reconfigured, it should be convenient for all the staff and people visiting to get in and out of the building. So it should help traffic flow around the property. Quick look at the indoor pool addition. We have the stretch pool for lap swimming and competition. We have the city's contribution for the indoor recreational pool area, party room, office, storage, mechanical area there. Add alternate is the sun deck that's shown on here. And then locker rooms, we've got 4 family change rooms in here. And then spectator seating. So we've had the council look at this a number of times, but it's more for the public's general knowledge. So again, staff does recommend approval of the resolution that's in your packet that would approve conditional use permit C2 2015 with the conditions and findings that are in that resolution.
I did notice the entrance from, is that Columbus? It's a one-way?
It is a one-way. It'll be heading, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, heading in the westbound direction? Westbound.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd just like to point out that in our planning meeting, that you also brought up that the skating rink would be
Yes.
a condition that they would use for overflow parking, because parking was, for meets and stuff, was a condition.
Yeah, well, there's basically that property, the old hockey rink area, that one of the conditions is within a year of full operation, we'll kind of reevaluate and see if there's a problem with parking and maybe a need for some overflow parking that might need to be improved. Also ties into the middle school. If the bus garage ever were to move, we have a condition on that CUP as well, that would be obviously a good location for overflow parking. People park there now, and it's an issue of people blocking the bus garage at this point. So there's just an overall, need for parking. There's parking here. It's just a long way for you to walk, depending on which event you're going to and where you're going to. So get a little exercise and walk to your event.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
Second by Sean Ryan. Any other further comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, first resolution is done. Is there 4 resolutions we got here?
Actually, I have 4. So the next staff report is actually behind that one. It's for the variance for the pool addition at the CEC. And before we get into that, I'm going to show a couple of renderings here. This kind of ties into the pool addition variance a little bit. The rendering on the upper portion of the slide is actually a view looking to the east-southeast at the pool addition. You see obviously a lot of glass, open area. This is basically where the sun deck would be located. You see the extension of some of the locker room areas as part of the pool. The photo on the bottom corner is actually the new main entrance into this building, which would be located essentially right behind you. So if you can get a kind of picture of, as you walk into the building, you'd be walking between this area, and that's where the entrance would be. A couple other photos. This is a 1923 portion of the school building, which would be demolished. The playground area will move closer up between actually this portion of the building and what will be the early childhood building in this general area up here. Just a view down Central Avenue. I do want to point out, as I get into the variance discussion here, this existing portion of the gymnasium and CEC building is actually located up to 12 feet from the property line on Central Avenue North. Our ordinance requirement today is 30 feet for that minimum front setback. So as it relates to the new pool addition, you'll see it's actually sitting back farther, but still does not meet the minimum 30-foot setback. You can see the gymnasium addition. Basically, this loading dock area will still be visible from the road, and the pool addition will extend off the gymnasium addition. So that gives you a perspective of how close the pool addition will be at that 20-foot, or excuse me, 22-foot setback. Another view of the pool will be located, indoor pool addition in this area here. Another view of all the cars on the road that shouldn't be there after the improvements are done, because there will not be an entrance right there into the building. So again, for the variance, we'll jump into that. We've again reviewed this at the November 18th Planning Commission meeting. The indoor pool addition on the north side of the C gymnasium, as I said, the proposal is to have that be 22 feet back from Central Avenue's front property line versus the 30-foot requirement. And as I noted, it'll actually be no closer than the gymnasium addition. It will actually be 10 feet further away than the CEC is today at its closest point. So I don't see any impact as that concerns the neighborhood. We had one public comment for the variance that was about wondering how the pool would be used, and it was explained that it will be used by the school for curriculum as well as the public use. Try to have that thing programmed, morning to night as much as possible to get the use out of it. They didn't have any other concerns with that when we provided that comment. Planning Commission did recommend approval, again a 4-0 vote with the 6 findings in the staff report. And a couple photos again, I'll just point out again for everybody's benefit, you can kind of see the jog back, so the pool will be set back slightly. This is that loading dock area right there. That's where the addition will extend off this portion here and then out. So I'll give you a little perspective on that. Again, we have a resolution for the approval of variance V4 2015 in your packet, and approval is recommended.
Any questions? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve variance number V4-215.
I'll second.
got a motion by Dave Bruzek, second by Jenna Tuma. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. You're on a roll, Ken. Just keep going.
All right, we'll keep going, and we'll move on to conditional use permit number C3 2015. Again, as with the CEC area, we have a single-family residential area. You'll note there's only one house that's actually adjacent to the middle school, located right here to the south. We have adjacent cemetery-owned property. Some of it's athletic fields on both the west and east side here. And then to the north is a bus garage and tennis court area. Again, on the November 18th meeting, this is one of the items that was reviewed. They're proposing to expand the middle school by adding a classroom addition that'll add 12 additional classrooms, an 8,000 square foot gymnasium on the north end of the building, new main office entrance off the west side, and a kitchen expansion on the north, kind of adjacent to the gymnasium. One thing to note, obviously why this is being done is to accommodate the 6th grade class moving from this CEC building back over to the middle school, where they obviously should be housed and not have to cross the road multiple times a day. Another thing to point out, there will be a new visitor parking lot constructed on the west side of the middle school that'll be more convenient for people to provided access for when they're a visitor to the school to get into and out of the building. So I'll show that on the plans we have here. One thing this site does have is a major parking shortage. That exists today, and it will continue to exist. We've known that all along. And again, we've addressed that by accommodating about 27 staff will need to park in sign designated parking on the CEC site, basically on the north edge of the pool. Give you a little more background. Total parking in the site today, we do have 91 parking spaces on the middle school site. There will be 97 after the project is done. It is very much worthy to note that there are 104 staff. So clearly there's more staff than parking available. So kind of the idea behind having 27 staff park at the middle school is that you keep the visitor parking lot open for visitors during the day, and then you have the a remainder of the people fill up the remainder of the lots for the staff parking lots, and then the remainder will park here at the CEC. One thing, that total of the 97 spaces does not include the whole bus loop on the east side of the building. That is obviously available for event parking when they're not buses and school trips in and out of the bus loop. So that does help for event parking quite a bit. So that total does not include that. And move along here. We did have a public hearing. Again, on this item, we did not have any public comment received in this particular project. Planning Commission did recommend approval with a 4-0 vote with the 8 findings and 11 conditions. And as Jenna pointed out before, one of the conditions is that if the bus garage is ever to move from its current location, that be strongly looked at for overflow parking. Obviously, if you've ever been to an event at the middle school, you know the roads and everything can get filled up, which is not the worst thing in the world, but if there's off-street parking available, it would be good to provide for that where able. I have a 3D view of this particular site. You can see Central Avenue North, kind of in the foreground of the photo here. North would be looking to the left side of the photo. 2-story classroom addition for a portion of this classroom addition along Central Avenue. New main office, entrance addition. This area here that's green space right now will have the visitor parking lot. Moving around to the north end of the building, the kitchen and loading dock area. The loading dock will be screened from view from the public in the roadway. And then finally, the auxiliary gym and fitness center addition on the north end of the school there. So it gives you kind of a good visual of how that property will lay out. Do want to note this parking lot here will actually be slightly expanded and provided for a dual row of parking. Right now there's only one row of parking along the south edge. Another row will be added basically to dual front towards the building. So that added a bit of capacity there for staff as well. It's a little bit different view again. Here's the put out the bus loop. You can see it's double striped for bus parking and then for event parking. Dark areas are existing building. The blue areas are the addition areas. Again, here's the classroom addition, kind of along Central Avenue. New office addition. Here's you can see the one-way flow into and out of the visitor parking lot. So you can kind of loop in, and you'll be much closer to the office entrance than you would be today, which is only at the very north end of the building. Gymnasium addition, kitchen addition, and then this is kind of the loading dock area here. So again, net increase in parking, but more staff being added, and some of them have to park at the CEC. So again, Planning Commission did recommend approval of the resolution in the packet that would approve C3 2015. I'll show you a couple of more pictures here real quick before we move on. Don't want to really show much detail again, but these color-coded areas basically show a lot of the changes will be made to the building. You can see the gymnasium again on the north end, kitchen expansion. This is really the loading dock area, and it will be largely screened from the public view along the county road or 7th Street Northeast. And then you can see in the green here a lot of the classroom addition area, and then the darker blue, the office addition. More renderings for everybody. So new main entrance into the building. You can see just off to the south of that the two-story classroom addition. Another view here along Central Avenue. Another view of the classroom addition along Central Avenue. I just want to point out before we get to the variance report, because I don't have this photo in here again, but this is the portion of the building along Central Avenue that's proposed to be 28 feet from the front property line instead of the ordinance required 30. So just give you perspective, that's the classroom addition that needs that variance. And then on the north edge of the building, the gymnasium addition is proposed to be 20 feet from the property line along the county road versus the ordinance requirement of 30. So that's where that building extends. And there was a question, I believe Councilmember Tuma asked the question if site visibility would be impaired from the bus loop pulling out of there because of the gymnasium, and it would not. We have quite a bit of right-of-way there, and then the building setback an additional 20 feet from there. So you'd have ample site view if you're exiting that parking lot, whether you're a bus or a car. Just wanted to point that out, and then you can kind of see the screening of the dock area there. So I'll leave these photos up here for you while you consider the conditional use.
Is there any
resolution.
issue being that it's a county road, or do we still have full?
We have full land use authority, even though it's a county road. Yeah, they don't particularly have a thought one way or the other on setbacks to buildings. Obviously, if it was impairing a site triangle, which this is not, we do have required site triangles. This is not impeding that at all.
Okay. Any questions?
I had a couple. I was on the planning commission, and I'm the one that has questions. On 7th Street, will it stay parking? Will there still be street parking?
At this point, we would look at that, and again, we would probably revisit that. I know with events, sometimes people park in the turn lanes and things on 37 as they get over to Columbus. I don't know, Jim, if you have anything to add to that.
There's none right along.
Not right along the school, but further down.
Beyond the bus loop access.
By the ball field?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right along there.
They still can park there, though.
As far as, yeah, our plan would be to allow that, yeah.
And then how many spots will there be in parking?
On the site,
97.
97.
we'll have 97, not including that bus loop area.
Okay.
So
And
that
then how
bus
about the
loop area,
visitor?
forget
Is that including the visitor parking or not?
That does include the visitor
It
parking.
does. And so there's 104 staff, so what's here?
That's why the 27 that didn't fit in the non-visitor parking were suggested to park over here in designated parking areas.
So there's room to expand parking here if they add staff or additional staff.
Well, with the calculation, it's not, it's actually some additional parking that's provided for on this site that is not needed per the minimum requirements. So that's how we're able to, basically it's a shared, for lack of a better word, it's a shared parking agreement between the two properties to share parking because you have different peak use times. The pool necessarily won't be used heavily during the day when there's staff there. So it's a good opportunity to utilize that in that off-peak time. And then at night, you might have people from the pool parking over at the middle school for overflow. So
Good use of the hard service.
it's a good use of hard service, exactly.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one. So the variance then, is there a variance for the lack of adequate parking space for this facility?
There is, and we'll get into that with the variance request for the
Okay.
next agenda item.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit C3-2015.
Second.
Second by Sean Ryan. Any other comments or questions? If not, everyone approve it, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Back at you, Ken.
All right, so getting into the variance here, I'll just comment more on the photos here. So again, the gymnasium addition will be added on the north portion of this building. Will come within 20 feet of that north property line along County Road 37 or 7th Street Northeast, whichever you want to refer to that as. So this is looking to the southeast. This photo is looking to the southwest. This one's looking to the southeast. Again, this is where the additions will be in that north end. The visitor parking lot will loop to the north out and exit at this existing curb cut area back out onto Central Avenue. The gymnasium addition will extend basically in this portion of the lot here to the north of the existing building. And then here's a view looking south, Central Avenue on the side of the photo there. New visitor parking lot will be in this area on the west side of the building. And this is where the two-story classroom addition will be located in this general area here along Central Avenue to give you a visual perspective of that. This is the fourth item that we reviewed back on November 18th with the Planning Commission. These various building additions, again, quick summary, looking for a variance for that gymnasium addition on the north from 30 foot required to be allowed to be set back 20 feet from County Road. I should actually say County Road 37, not 27, for the gymnasium addition. Reduction in the minimum setback for that classroom addition along Central Avenue from 30 feet to 28 feet, so it's only a 2-foot variance, and it was noted at the Planning Commission meeting that the pool addition will be closer than that along Central Avenue, obviously, and most of the homes in the area are also closer to that front property line along Central Avenue than this classroom addition. And then finally, Dave, the final variance is a minimum parking space variance that would allow for 97 spaces to be provided for on-site versus the 142 that are required. And again, that 97 does not include the overflow parking in the bus loop area, so that obviously helps for event situations, but not for the day-to-day staff parking and visitor parking. It's obviously noted at the meeting as well that the site's pretty limited in areas that additions could be placed. Functionally, the locations for the gymnasium and the kitchen and the classrooms are really the only places they could go. Obviously through the whole process and the school facilities task force, and that whole process was to, be a good steward of the taxpayers' dollar and utilize what we have as best we can. And I think these variances do accommodate that and fit in very well with the neighborhood and provide a reasonable accommodation for the school to expand and have the 6th grade move back into the building. So just note once again, as far as the parking, we'll have designated staff parking over at the CEC for some of the middle school staff. I don't know how they're going to pick who gets to park over there, but we'll leave that up to them. And then,
Tim, I'm sure Tim has a formula that will work.
finally, the Planning Commission did recommend approval on a 4-0 vote to approve the variances with 6 findings in the staff report. Just one final review. So you can just see the gymnasium addition, 20 feet instead of the required 30 to the north property line. And then the classroom addition here on Central Avenue being 2 feet too close to the front property line. So another resolution in the packet that would approve the variance for these 2 additions and the parking variance.
Any questions for Ken? Take another drink of water there, Ken. If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the variance.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion by Dave Brusian, second by, was you Amy?
Yes.
Amy Jurek. There's no other comments or questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Ken, to make sure you thank the Planning Commission for all the hard work on this, and
I
yourself.
will, yes. I
know
think
you
they
guys-
actually enjoyed having some agenda items.
Yeah, well, good. Well, maybe you keep talking to Tim, and they might have a lot of agenda items in the future, so. Next, Glenn, are you taking this?
I'm going to take this along with John Peterson. John Peterson's here with us tonight from Baldwin Mink. Some of you probably know John Peterson. John had quite a hand in building the new wastewater treatment plant, in design and engineering of that plant. So John Peterson's going to start it off with just kind of an introduction of what we know, what we found, and what we're planning on going ahead with on the 10-inch force main that broke on us behind the bus garage there. So, John Peterson.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Glenn. We just want to give you a overview of the issue that we faced and what the evaluation showed up. And I'm going to have to learn how this works.
Just click the,
Got it. So, and I'll go through, ask questions as we come along in case I glossed over something. But currently, while the city was operating both a 10-inch and a 20-inch force main out of the main lift station site, which is down just north of the bus garage, the school bus garage. There was some discussion. And that was designed and in place, started in the 60s, was upgraded in the 90s with the 20-inch force main. Back in June of this year, staff identified there was a leak in that 10-inch force main, and that's when we got on board, to evaluate what to do with that leak. And I'll talk more about that in the next. So with those 2 lift stations, that 10-inch force main is the one used to pump most of the wastewater flow from that site to the wastewater treatment facility. 20 inches utilized just to pump when you have a high rainfall event. You get quite a bit more flow there. That what we call the bypass lift station then comes online and pumps the flow to the wastewater plant. So you have the dual force mains. It does run through this wetland area between that site and up along the schools there. And that's where that break in the 10-inch was identified, was down in this wetland area, okay? Just to get a little overview of where the site is, and you see the breakdown in the wetland area, we kind of circled that. That's about where we think it is. Staff found it kind of bubbling up there. Did all the proper things with the MPCA and all that. You're not Mike, no? I'm good? So, staff identified it right away, and one of the things, the benefit of having this dual force main operation is they could divert and utilize the bypass lift station and route all the flow to the wastewater plant using that lift station and the 20-inch force main. So that allowed them to stop any more leakage into the wetland by using that 20-inch force main. I'll get into why that's not a great long-term solution, but that in the short term, that's the beauty of that kind of arrangement. So they did that immediately. We then worked with staff to go and solicit quotes to provide a cutover and an interconnection between the 10-inch and the 20-inch force main so we could use the existing smaller main lift station to pump through the 20-inch. And the reason we want to do that is while the bypass lift station will work in that scenario, it's quite a bit less efficient, and it's much harder on those bypass pumps because they end up coming on and off quite a bit. It's hard on motors. They're less efficient to run. It's just better to run the main lift. It can run through that 20-inch just fine, but we didn't have that interconnection. So we went out, solicited quotes. K-WIT was selected to install that, and they got that work done in September. Okay, so now the main lift station is routed through the 20-inch force main, and that's what's pumping directly to the wastewater plant. So we then went to work on what our long-term solution was with those force mains, okay? And the basic options we looked at was, one, just maintain this two force main design. And the reason I put it that way, it's not typical to have a dual force main like that. But it's a great idea, and you actually already have the investment in place, and it works, and it does exactly what it was designed to do. It gave you that flexibility to react to an issue. So that's one option, is to maintain that and keep doing that. Within that option, we could just go out and try to fix the leak in the middle of the wetland. We could replace the entire 10-inch force main if we felt that it was all looking like it was going to fail. Or we could just replace a section of the force main in the wetland only. The other option is to just completely abandon the 10-inch force main and continue to just route everything through the 20-inch force main. And I'll come back down to while that might sound like a great idea, it doesn't turn out to be the most viable. So when we looked at repairing the 10-inch force main right at the leak, if you've been out on that site and you think about what it's going to take, well, we know about where that leak is. It could be anywhere in probably about a 50-foot radius of what we saw bubbling up in the slough. And the idea that you're going to send a crew down into that slough and find the leak and repair it 12 feet down in the water without causing way more damage than we already just had, and cost, to be honest. So we kind of evaluated that and said that's really just not a viable option in this case. There's other ways to get this done. So along with that, we decided, well, we should really look at what the condition of that force main is. We knew we'd be digging up with the interconnection down in the yard outside the lift station, so we could evaluate the force main there. City staff went out then and evaluated the force main on the other end of that wetland just outside the school. And in both those conditions, that pipe that we're using, that 10-inch force main, is in really nice condition. It shows like it has quite a bit of service life left. And what that tells you is that this failure was a localized issue. It's not a long-term. The whole pipe is not corroded and you're not gonna be repairing a break like this, in our opinion, every few years. That pipe looked to be in excellent condition. One of the things you see why we identified the wetland soils also tend to be a little corrosive. So we thought if we got out of the wetland and found the condition of the pipe, that it might be viable that we don't have to replace the whole pipeline. And that is, in our opinion, what's going on there. It's a localized break. When we looked at the conversion to a one force main design, what that's going to require is some work at the wastewater plant to manage that. Because right now what happens is when that bypass lift station pump comes on, it doesn't pump directly to the wastewater plant unless the operators are out and they turn the valves and route it directly to the plant. Right now it goes off. There's a small equalization basin that was there from one of the original plant designs, and it goes to that facility before it gets pumped back to the plant at a lower rate. So while we can route this and handle most of that flow through the plant, it was going to require some work. It's not just a simple just quit using it and start pumping it to the plant kind of option. There was some work required. So we did evaluate what that would take, a control structure at the plant and some other control work that would allow us to manage that. When we looked at the pipe replacement option, I won't go into a lot of detail. I just mostly want to show you we looked at all the options about how we can do it. You could open trench through there. You can do something we call directional drilling, where you just kind of bore it underneath the wetland, and so you cause minimal impact on the wetland. There's a pipe bursting method where it just runs along the pipe that's there and basically bursts it open and runs a new line along with it. So we did look at all those, put costs together on all those options to see what would be the most cost effective. So when we looked at these longer term option costs, you can see we did run a cost for the total replacement on those three options, and those are running, you know, in the $700,000 to $900,000 range. We looked at just replacing the 10-inch forest main in the wetland area. And the most cost-effective version there is the directional drilling, where you're doing the least impact in the wetland. So there's the least amount of work in the worst areas, the most expensive areas. And then that cost for the conversion of the single to a single 20-inch forest main, that roughly $500,000 is the work that we required at the plant to do the work, so you could manage, so that staff could manage the flows in a reasonable way. So what we come down to as our recommendation is, since the pipe's in good condition outside that wetland, the 10-inch forest main we're talking about, and we don't believe that trying to go in and dig in that wetland is a good idea to repair that, then the replacement of the forest main within that wetland area and just kind of bypassing the break seems to be the most cost effective. And directional drilling is the most effective way to do that. And that brings us to a project that's been proposed, which is directional drilling a section through the forest main at a cost of about $233,000. And in this, you'll see the area we've identified, pulling up somewhere in that area just to the west of the school and the playground areas out there. And that's where we were at when we did the excavation to identify where the pipe is and see what kind of condition it is. We should be able to avoid really any adverse impact on the wetland in that part. It's a single drill. You'll open up. They bring equipment that looks similar to this, where it just, there's a hole on each end and it just pushes it through and underneath. And really there'll be, I'd say, almost no impact on the wetland with that. So proposed timeline for this is to, the idea we'd like to get the documents, the contract documents done this winter into the MPCA for some review. Mostly we feel we want them to review because we obviously had to identify them that we had a leak, so we want to know we're fixing and taking care of the problem. And then get bids accepted in time that the work could be done over the summer and restored in the backside of that school area, so we're out of that, you know, we're not there during school time, and get that work done yet the next summer. So I think that kind of summarizes. I went kind of quickly, but I didn't know how much detail anybody wanted to know about the wastewater forest mains. So, anything else, Glenn? But if I missed,
Yeah, just, you know, as John said, we did a lot of different studies looking at a lot of different options as far as what we can do. The dual forest main in this situation makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons. The one is not only the fact that we do have a second main if something happens to one of the other, but it just makes the most sense as far as good for the pumps, good for the pumping stations and the controls and everything else to pump through the 10-inch on a regular basis, utilize the 20-inch for those huge rain events. With the interconnect, we can now switch flows from one pipe to the other, which is a huge benefit once we get the 10-inch fixed. After looking at the possibilities of how to fix the 10-inch through that swampy area, the low area, not only is it cost effective to do the directional boring, it's less invasive, which DNR, pollution control, everybody, it's just good for everybody just to leave that wetland alone, kind of sneak underneath it where the pipe's going to, you know, nobody's even going to know besides the two holes that got to be drilled on either end of the project. Nobody's going to even know that anything's done. You sand fill the existing 10-inch force main, the one that's broken, and it just stays there. We'd be replacing this directional boring, would be replacing the existing ductile iron pipe or steel pipe with an HDPE pipe which is welded together, or I say welded, it's a fused type connection. There's no metal connections. As John commented, low area, swampy areas, that ground is typically noted to be pretty corrosive. You put metal connections of any kind in there, and that's probably the first spot anything's going to fail, is in a low area like that where there's a lot of water, kind of peaty soils, things like that. So the HDPE pipe or the plastic pipe with no connections besides the fused or the welded connections through that swamp area should ensure or will ensure us for a long time down the road that at least in that swampy area we should not have a problem with the 10-inch force main. So basically tonight we're looking for the city staff or city council to direct John Peterson and staff to proceed in the engineering and go ahead with getting all the permits and quotes for replacing the 10-inch force main through the swamp area for an estimated cost of $233,537. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions for either one of us.
I have one quick one. Mike, you have in here that it's in the 2016 budget, but that you would pursue general obligation bonds, or?
Yeah, we do bonding and spread it out over a number of years.
Oh, you would, okay. We don't have that in any type of reserve or anything that because we collect money for that on a ongoing basis, do we not? Isn't there a line item in there?
No, we collect funds for replacement of numerous items at the plant itself, but not for capital main replacement. Any of the replacement sanitary sewer mains that we've been doing as part of the reconstruction projects have all been bonded and spread over about 15 years.
Okay.
So if we did this, we would do it in conjunction with what Bruce is looking at in the utilities, whether we have anything from golf or not, as we'd consolidate all of those together in one project to bring to the council.
I see, okay.
How big of a section are you looking at?
As far as replacement of this 10-inch, it would be right behind the bus garage to just behind Falcon Ridge School.
I think he's looking at length.
Yeah, so,
About 1,400 feet.
Yeah, it's 1,368 feet, something
Yeah.
like that.
Would it go close to where it currently is?
It would
No.
go close to where it currently is, yes.
And this product is, I've heard about it's like good for 25, 50 years,
100 years,
100 years, better than what I got, okay.
yeah. This pipe's been around for a long time.
Durable, solid upgrade in the product.
You see a lot of this put in as water main, especially in the rural areas. You know, southern Minnesota, Iowa, that area, a lot of this pipe is used in rural water systems. Have been for a number of years.
And wastewater systems. So what you see on Cedar Lake is the same type of material that they bored in the whole way.
You wouldn't use this method to install a sewer line in a residential street because you got the grades to worry about. But since this is a force main, it's all pumped. You can have a little bit of elevation change and won't affect a force main. If you're looking for gravity mains that is running in all the residential or most of the residential streets, there you gotta have a % grade so that it gets from point A to point B. This wouldn't be the ideal method to install that pipe. Directional boring I'm talking about.
okay. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to fund the project and
To move forward on the project? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, second motion by Jenna Toomas, second by Sean Ryan. There's not any other further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, are you taking the
Yes.
next one?
Including your packet is the information on the notification of a grant that was received from the, the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission for the New Prague Area Community Center Association, Inc., in the amount of $3,468. They were one of a number of grants that was approved here back in November. You had approved their grant application materials that were submitted. They did receive funding to the degree of 50% of the funding to purchase a new electric ice edger for the hockey facility So what we're looking for is approval from you for authorization to enter into the grant agreement with the Minnesota Amherst Sports Commission.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
I'll move to accept.
Second.
Got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Dave Brusick to accept the grant that we received from the Minnesota, or the Mighty Ducks for the edger. There's any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Are you doing, or is Ken?
Glenn?
Or Glenn?
I'll do the
Okay.
next one. Ready for it?
You're on.
On the agenda is the construction contract for the 2014 street and utility improvement project and Settlers Park Trail is complete and ready for final payment. If you remember, the 2014 street improvement consisted of 3rd Street in this area from Columbus all the way to the very end of 3rd Street or 3rd Street Northwest. Also included Church Avenue, School Street, the alley west of School Street, First Avenue, and the alley west of Church Avenue, and also the Settlers Park Trail through Settlers Park. So everything is complete with the project. Final payment is up, which includes saw and seal that happened this year on the project, and then the retainage that they'd be getting back, that Chart Excavating would be getting back as final payment. So it's recommended that City Council approve the attached resolution accepting the work, authorize the final payment with the release of all retainage for the 2014 street and utility improvement.
All your wish list has been done and
Yeah.
satisfaction?
Yep. Yep, everything's looking pretty good out there.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the 2014 street project and Settlers Park Trail.
I'll second.
Second by Amy Jurek. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next is,
I'll take that also.
boy, you're hot today, Glenn.
At the October 5th council meeting, we did a little update for the council, just updating the 2010 to 2021 12-year CIP plan. Now we're coming back with what we feel is a lot better 10-year plan, which will include some more areas to be done. So this plan would include 2016 through 2025, so a 10-year CIP plan, which includes the 3 areas that we talked about back in October, but then also includes some mill and overlay areas, because we're getting past the total CIP projects, and now we got to start looking at maintaining our existing streets that were done in the early 90s, to current date. So we'd be putting them on a rehab plan as far as when they need to be done, mill and overlay on those, things like that. So we have a number of areas that would be a mill and overlay that will be figured in on this 10-year plan. We have not zeroed in on the so-called areas to give you a map as far as the mill and overlay areas. The one area that is there's a map attached in your memo that is of the 3 areas that we talked about in October, be on the northeast corner of town, just north of Main Street, east of Columbus Avenue, north of Main Street up to about 4th Street, east of Columbus Avenue, all the way to Rising Moon Alley. Those 3 areas were, if you remember, were part of the existing plan for 16, 17, and 18. Then we did some other areas, which then bumped that up to 17, 18, and 19. We don't feel that those areas are bad enough that they'd have to be done now. So we've got Main Street in this new 10-year CIP plan for 2020. We're proposing to do those 3 areas in the northeast side of town in 2021, 22, and 23. And then 24, 25 would be mill and overlays. We would be planning on doing a mill and overlay in the area right around the East Water Tower in 2019. A lot of those roads were put in 91, 92. They're getting to the age where they should be milled and overlaid and taken care of before they actually start to fall apart. We don't want to get to that point. We don't want a road falling apart. We want to maintain it before it gets to that point. So the 10-year plan includes some of the total rework areas that we talked about earlier, but also mill and overlay projects to be included in that. So the recommendation from staff is the improvement projects be considered in the years outlined above. At this point, no capital improvements are proposed for 2016, 17, or 18. So we got those years in the 10-year plan, but we're not proposing to do anything. The only reason we would do anything is if something in that northeast section of town, much to our surprise, that something would actually just kind of fall apart on us. Well, then we'd have to relook this plan. But we are planning on relooking at this, redoing this plan or relooking at every year, so we have a current 10-year plan anyway. So we'd really have those areas in the focus as far as keeping an eye on them, things like that.
So Glenn, these streets that you're recommending the overlay, basically those are still, that's just the original street.
That is correct.
And
The other thing that we're proposing, part of this, not part of the capital improvement, but something we'd like to do in the very near future, is actually do a pavement management plan. Right now I'm starting to look at companies that do this, and it's pretty scientific. You can do it anywhere from a very simple walk down the road and kind of just give it a rating, to hiring companies that use radar and cameras, and they actually have something on their vehicle that senses if there's a lot of movement on the vehicle, and then they give a rating to that segment of road too. So just looking at all the different options, what makes good sense, what's cost effective, how will it help us, is it worth spending that kind of money, things like that. I don't know the answer to that now, which is not part of the CIP plan, but it's something that will help us going forward if we decide to do any kind of a pavement management plan, as far as what year this area gets done, why are we doing it, and how far are we going. So that's what the pavement management plan would do for us. So that's one of the recommendations, is to come up with a rating system or a pavement management plan going forward to help staff determine what roads need to be done and why they should be done and when they should be done. So looking for the council to consider formally accepting the CIP update, calling for a public hearing at the December 21st council meeting for the 10-year CIP plan.
Glenn, now that we've done all the CIPs over the last 12 years, plus the next ones listed here, we should pretty much have all the infrastructure taken care of for how many years?
You are correct. Yep.
How many years? 50?
Yeah, that would be the hope for sure. It's 50 years. That's, again, we're PVC water main, PVC sewer lines. Manufacturers are telling us it should go 50 plus years. So right now everybody is kind of hanging their hat on 50 years. And you'll naturally reassess it when it gets closer to that date. Now we have to look at managing the pavement. Seal coating is a tool we've been using for a number of years. It's worked very well. There's a point where seal coating will that's not good enough anymore. We got to get rid of the first 1.5 or 2 inches of asphalt and put a new layer down, and then you start your seal coating project again. Then you start seal coating it every 3 or 4 years, again, depending on the area, depending on traffic, wear and tear, things like that. All has a major play in what year you seal coat a road.
So my point was, I was trying to point out to the residents that because of the foresight that our staff has done, that we're in darn good shape.
I totally agree. I think over the years the council needs a applaud for going forward and continuing on with their projects, because it's gotten to us. It's gotten us to this point,
Yeah.
which is a really good spot to be in. There's a lot of cities that are playing catch-up yet. So,
But-
you're right.
It better get us 50 years, because I'm sure Dave will be around still to make sure that,
All right. I may be around, but it's going to be about 6 feet under.
Any other questions for Glenn? Guess I'll look for a motion to approve the new CIP project and call for a public hearing on the 21st at 7.
Mayor, excuse me, clarify, I don't want you to adopt it tonight. It's just to acknowledge receipt of the
Oh,
10-year
okay.
plan. Simply call for the public hearing. We take public comment on the 21st, and then you can adopt.
Okay. I guess we don't have to do any action on that, so. Good job, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
You
you
have to
still
call
have
for
to
the
call
public hearing.
Just don't adopt the 10-year plan tonight.
I propose we,
Just getting new at this job?
yeah, and you got to be around here on the 21st, too. So
Oh, that's your ball, Lex. I got a motion, I'll second the motion. I have a motion by Dave Brusick to call for the public hearing, second by myself. I think we got this correct now, Mike? Just keep me in line. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the public hearing is set for the 21st.
Just as an aside, the other reason for doing this and getting this updated and modified to include the 2020 project is the TAP assistance project funding that Chris Cavett is putting an application together that's due to MnDOT in January. Is if we had it in an existing CIP plan, that we get extra credit on the points in that grant application, and it wasn't in our old CIP. So that's also the other reason for trying to get this updated and modernized, that we'll need it for extra points in that funding scenario.
Okay, next on the agenda, Mike, are you going to take this one?
I'll do a
consider
bit of an
the-
overview. I don't know if we have anybody in the audience from the city band. I see a couple. I don't see Rush, though. Okay, so I don't know who's the spokesperson for the group, but if they want to come up to the podium, that they might be able to add some additional supplemental information in addition to what I have. I only assume this is board member Mark Salva.
Yes, my name is Mark Silva. I'm the president of the board currently.
What you have in your packet is information that I believe was sent to all of you. City staff ultimately received it, and it was in regards to some consideration of seeking funding sponsorship by the city, that the band has run into some challenges a little bit with the school district, where it appears as of June 30th of 2016, they will discontinue funding of the band director's salary and benefits as of June of this next year. So they put together some information that they submitted to you. I've attempted to, based on that information, try to take a look at, through discussions with the school, number one, to understand the situation a little bit more, but secondly, to take a look at providing you with some preliminary information at this point on some of the short-term, longer-term options that we might have should you seek to decide to financially participate in funding of some portion of the band's operations. And so I can go into that in more detail following Mr. Salva's overview. We try to put in a copy of the 14-15 fiscal year band finances that are kept by the school district, a little bit of the job description of the band director and the number of hours and the compensation that's paid for that. But I guess maybe as preliminary background, it's worth having Mr. Salva provide the council with a bit of an overview on the various options and alternatives that they reviewed with the school, and a little bit of what you're searching for.
Well, I guess what we're searching for, we've always had a very good relationship with the community education, and it's one of the items up was that the CEC was no longer going to be able to fund the director's salary. And so Janelle had proposed a couple options, directions that we could go. And we're very proud as a group to carry the New Prague's name, and we would like to continue that. We try to fundraise as many of our funds as we can to purchase the equipment that we have. We do not rely on the high school music program. We do not rely on the middle school program to provide all our instrumentation. So we want to be very self-sufficient, but unfortunately we cannot raise the kind of funds to purchase those kinds of instruments. For example, currently we're looking at a piece of percussion instrument of the chimes. We're looking at about $4,500 for one piece of instrumentation. And so the fundraising we do in 1 year would be depleted in 1 year. So we therefore have a very difficult time trying to come up with additional funding. Sitting next to me is our director, Rush Wagner.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to hear us out. Appreciate making the agenda this evening. I apologize for my tardiness, but I just cancelled band early so I can come down and have a chat with you fine people. What Mark's saying is exactly right. We try to be as self-sufficient as we possibly can. And I want to make sure that everyone's aware I'm not here fighting for my dollars, my job. I'm just fighting for the New Prague Area Community Band. I just happen to be the person who's lucky enough to be the director at this current juncture in time. One of the issues that we have always faced, and a lot of community bands and school band face, is that there's always the money problem. If you try to organise, fundraise, and put things towards a goal, for grants, as I'm sure many, if not all of you are aware, you need to provide some kind of documentation. You need to provide a percentage of the requested amount to gain grants. If we raise money, which we do quite successfully, we raise funds, we have that bank balance growing and growing so that we can show whomever it is that we ask for the grant monies from that, yes, we are putting our best foot forward, we are raising money in order to attain this particular goal. We've made the 20% of whatever it might be that we're asking for. We're more than happy to put that towards the fund balance. Please help us out by providing the grant. If the band became more self-sufficient and was required to suddenly start paying the director's salary, all of that goes away, and we would still be behind at the end of the year. We raise a lot for a community band. I think we do a really, really good job. We raise enough to gradually grow our balance. We raise enough to cover the cost of some smaller things, some peripheral percussion equipment here and there. We raise enough to cover music and some other, smaller things throughout the year. But we just don't get close to covering the cost of what it is to cover the director's salary. And that's why we're here asking, because of the restructuring and the way that Community Ed is looking at their balances and how they operate their funds. It's come to a head, and here we are, sort of asking you guys if it would be an option to support the New Prague Area Community Band in that venture of making music not only for our community, but for our neighbouring communities. And one of the things we're working towards even tonight is working towards playing in the Guthrie this Saturday. So we try and branch out as much as we can, and we perform, again, I'm sure you're all aware, we perform in a lot of the venues here in town and also in the broader communities surrounding us. So really, and again, as Mark said, we hold the New Prague logo. We play under that. We are the New Prague Area Community Band, so we do fly that wherever we go, and we'd like that to remain static if we can.
Okay, any questions for?
You mentioned grants. Do you apply for grants? Have you succeeded in getting many?
We do apply for grants. It's not necessarily something we do every year, and one of the big reasons for that is because we don't have the fund balance to show
matching.
to match or get a percentage or whatever it might be. The most recent success that we had with the grant writing was to get a set of timpani, very nice timpani that we now have for the community band. Was that $3,300, I think, total to purchase those timpani. We worked towards that for a couple of years, and we got the funds that we needed to match that, or to get the 20%, I think it was. So yes, we have been successful in the past. We would definitely be trying to get some grant money to get those chimes. We feel that would be a beneficial thing, not only for of course, the members of the band to hear that augmentation in the percussion section, but it would just bring that different element specifically for indoor concerts. We work very hard to try to get some of the smaller details and the finer details of the music accurate. And to be able to have all of the instrumentation that the particular pieces call for, it just adds that extra layer and makes the performance more enjoyable for everybody.
One of the grants that Rush is talking about and we've applied for in the past is called the Capital Grant, which is through the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. And where we have a very difficult time is, first of all, you can apply for up to $10,000. We need to have $2,500 of that in our coffers alone. The other thing that makes it very difficult, we are competing with every organization like ours, whether it be theatrical, choral, you name it, throughout the 7-county metro area. So you can take a pretty good guess as what kind of numbers we're talking about. So that's what makes it very difficult.
Question for Mike. I don't know if this makes sense or not, but would we as a city organization be able to, I don't want to say match what they need, but can we act as like we do for Mighty Ducks, for example, and be a co-sponsor or something like that? I don't know if we can lay out the money.
Piece of what I think you're referencing with the Mighty Ducks in this case is that because those funds have to go to a city entity in the application process, we don't necessarily have any financial exposure in the process. We just have to be the facilitator of the receipt of the grant. Once we get proof from the Hockey Association, that group, that they bought the piece of equipment, give me the paperwork, then I can apply for the funding, and when we get that back, we give it back to them. So we're just a facilitator in that process. We have no real financing exposure in that process. So yes, that's possible. That's kind of what the school is doing and has been doing. If you saw in my materials, where basically they've been the fiscal agent, so to speak, for the band over the years. Had some conversation with Tim as we take a look at this inquiry and this request, as far as taking a look at it, that he and I just had some real brief conversations. One of the things we'd want to take a look at is pending your determination whether you have interest or whether you don't, and to what level you have interest, is that we somehow make sure whatever we're going to do, we take a look at this on a comprehensive basis, so that if we go to do something, that we take a look at what that overall process might be, whether it should be done as a joint powers between the city and the school in the process, because they're doing a number of things, and I raised some questions to them that as you take a look at, you've got one employee, and should that employee be an employee of the school, the city, or is it an independent contractor? You've got work comp issues, you've got insurance, you've got liability that when the band goes to travel. I raised some questions with Tim that I'm not even certain he knew the answers to at this point. So as we begin to look at this, there might be more of a comprehensive nature of taking a look at this. And is the council interested in doing a fixed contribution and that's it? Or are you looking at doing more? You know, what kind of permanent funding do you want to put in place to deal with bigger opportunities with the band? You know, we may not have all of the questions and the issues as you begin to explore this as to what you'd like to do long term. And so, at least in taking a look at this, it appears that the school is willing to stay on board and participate and pay the band director's salary till next June.
Right.
Following July 1 going forward, that's where they run into a situation. So the question we have is, as I tried to outline in my materials to you, is we don't really have any funding directly set aside to handle this. We've got some areas that we could maybe accommodate it, but depending upon the level of funding or what the council would like to participate in, may have a bearing whether we fund this out of the general fund, whether you look at long-term tax levy support or the different things there is. We just need to look at that and figure out what might be in everybody's best interests.
Well, as I read the information that you made available to us, from a legal point of view, there doesn't appear to me, at least, that there's much we can do unless we take it to the voters.
I think there's more than you think you can do, and that's where, in taking a look from Scott, that there's really more there than you think, and there's
Okay.
some question, and that's why I don't profess to have all the answers. He and I have just briefly looked at it when he came out for the Charter Commission last Thursday. We spent some time beginning to look at this, but we didn't have sufficient time to drill down and get into some of the specifics because there's some counter issues when you take a look at some of the statutory options as far as what the limitations are and just exactly what you can do and whether it does require a levy, whether we could include funding in the general fund budget or those kind of things. We don't have all those answers here tonight. And so I don't think the band's looking for an answer tonight. They wanted to get the issue in front of the council, and I think we need to begin to have some more interaction just to take a look at it to determine what kinds of things, what might be some solutions or options before we get to the July 1 timeframe next year.
Is the school district at all interested in being a partnership on something like this?
We haven't had sufficient opportunities to explore that in detail, but I raised it with Tim and taken a look at it that if we try to get involved, that as you heard, the band likes to or wanting to maintain some autonomy in this process. The school is doing certain pieces. We get involved in doing certain pieces. What we have to make sure we look out for is that who is that overarching entity that is providing liability insurance, who's covering the workers' comp, whose employee is the band director, who has control over that process, or can they be set up as an independent contractor? There's a number of different multiple choices and directions you can go, and I think we need to explore kind of the pros and cons of the various items, dependent upon what you have interest in ultimately wanting to do with this request.
I'd certainly like to see some more information. I mean, we have until June, so I think we have the time here. Is this the complete financial disclosure here too? I mean, is there any other fundraisers or anything that you guys do?
That's the part of the document that was provided by you, Mike, today, is that correct?
That was the one I received from the school district through Janelle Kirsch,
No.
Community Ed, as far as the 2014-2015 years. So that would have been July 1 of 14 to June 30 of 2015.
Okay.
So the most recent current year. And in there, you can see the fundraising that they did. Popcorn sales, Pizza Ranch tip night, and some of those kinds of things. That is the recap of their funding and revenue generation.
For example, Pioneer Power Days, $1,100. Was that payment for you guys performing, or was it a donation?
We volunteered time and went and sold at a stand, for lack of a better term. We spent the weekend there. It was multiple times throughout the year. We do that now. It's one of our better fundraisers that we do. It's a huge event. Mark, sort of spearheaded the organisation of that. So that's been a huge benefit for us to be able to become a part of that event and to help out the Lonsdale Skywarn in their planning and preparation for that. And we provide basically manpower, and we go and run the grills, and we run this and sell to the general public.
Okay. Have you hit up any local businesses to sponsor and perhaps put a logo on a shirt or uniform or something that you do?
When I first came on board, heck, how long ago was that now? 7 years ago?
8.
8 years ago.
2008.
When I first came on board, Mary Zard was one of the main contributors to the band and who helped organise getting me on board, and she was instrumental in helping things get back up and running again after it had sort of died away for a period of time. We had approached a number of businesses. We had started to do that, but we're also cognizant of the fact that local businesses get hit up a lot from a lot of different things, help support this, give to this venture and whatnot. So we want to be aware of that and be sensitive to that. And we don't want necessarily like the idea of pleading for money, more or less, although effectively I guess that's what we're doing now. But in answer to your question, not recently, I would say we haven't gone and actively searched sponsorship in the recent years.
Okay.
I guess, and part of that going to businesses, again, we don't want to be looking for handouts either necessarily. Working the Skywarn at Pioneer Power, working State Bank for popcorn or the Pizza Ranch for tips, we're willing to do the work. I mean, we're not looking for just freebie handouts, but unfortunately in this case, in order to retain a, director, we need some help.
How many people are in your band, or how many?
Current roster, I think, at max could be upwards of 35 people. It fluctuates week to week, and throughout the year it fluctuates also. We tend to get a lot of college students coming back once they, finish studying for the year. They come back, and they're with us for quite some time in the early, spring, late winter, early spring. And our numbers really augment quite substantially during that time, but then unfortunately a lot of them go back to school, and so our numbers drop again then. We've been lucky enough in the past couple of years to attract some younger members to the group, and at the moment we're starting to see some more younger students come in from not just New Prague, but from surrounding school districts who happen to be off on a Monday night, and they're enthusiastic about their music making, and they come along, they try it, and they love it, and they stick around. So that's a huge benefit, not only for us, of course, because we have more members, but I think it's positive that the younger generation is being interested in the music making process and is willing to go and search out those opportunities, which we are able to provide for them.
David, you had the question earlier that as you read it, there are certain things that if it was petitioned for and the tax levy was based on the tax capacity, there's certain limitations there. One of the statutes allows for a levy of a certain dollar amount, but then there's another one there under 412.221 subdivision 15 that is an authority to provide free musical entertainment. That in that, and that's kind of how we did it back in Marshall, is that it doesn't give them express ability to raise funds to support free music outside of the city's general levy annually. So I think if, based on the way we did it back in Marshall, is that you create the municipal band as an entity within the general fund, kind of like in the Parks Department as a separate standalone, is I think there's abilities based on that, if that's the one that we use back there, and I'd have to double check, is that, the council back in Marshall, we provided X amount of dollars to help fund the operations of the band. And in our case, it was more than just the band director, that there were stipends for the band members, there was sheet music, there were other things, all under the guise of providing free musical entertainment. And the band back there did X number of concerts in the summer at the band shell. And so fundamentally it comes back to is what is the council interested in wanting to do and willing to do to give us direction to go take a look at formulating what we can maybe bring back to you, and that how we do it, how we partner with the school, just what's the best way. I don't know that as of right now, but it's kind of the thing from a bigger picture is what are you wanting or willing to make available to this, and what are you willing to support, and then how do we fundamentally put it together? I think, Sean, in your question to the band and taking a look at it, and that's why the city back where I came from previously did it, is that they recognize everybody is asking or putting a pinch on the local business to do it, and they decided that the community band was important enough and it provided good entertainment to the community that they included X amount of dollars in their annual budget set aside for the city band. And so it didn't exclude them from going out and doing the fundraising and other things to do more than that, but the council formally included an element within the general fund budget that they approved on an annual basis, making it available for the band to do certain things under the guise of providing free musical entertainment to the community.
Now, in Marshall, Mike, for example, were there other organizations that then came forward and asked to have the same benefit as the band did?
No, this is one that's specifically allowed under the statutes as an option. And whether, I think you saw in there that there was, what if I'm recalling, I don't know if it was a a chorus or something else of that nature. We didn't have any of those. It was just the city band. Was the only entity that we had under the statutes that the council provided funding for that way.
How many performances do you do a year around town, and which events?
Typically do about 10 to 12 performances in the area.
Which would encompass?
All the way, like,
So last year we performed multiple times here in New Prague.
How many times? Just a rough guess. It doesn't have to be exact, but,
2, if not 3.
okay, so 2 or 3 times, yep.
Once in Lonsdale.
Rush Dzinki Days was 3 performances.
Valid.
Okay.
Dzinki Days is a huge day for us.
Right.
So Dzinki Days, there is a concert in the park. We held a performance at Lonsdale. We held a performance in the Guthrie Theatre. We played down in Faribault. April performance is a kickoff performance we held here in town also. At Northfield at the Bridge Square. Cedar Lake Park we performed at.
And do you charge for those events, or those are all
We don't
free?
charge for any events we
Okay,
perform.
okay. I was just
Some
curious.
events, some parades and whatnot will provide a stipend of some sort, you
Sure.
know, $100 here, $200 there to play, which we readily accept. But we certainly don't charge for any performance. Any indoor performance we give is always free, and, you know, it's a free will offering if you're so kind, but certainly not an entry charge to come in.
Rush, you've played at the community concert, Christmas concert in the past, have you not?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, very much so. And my hope is to have the community band involved in that again next year. It just so happened, again, coming back to Mary Zard 2 years ago, you know, she had a pretty rough year, so the Christmas concert didn't happen. And this year, as a way of getting back into it, the Cannon Valley Regional Orchestra has asked if Hymnus can perform the Handel's Messiah, both down in Faribault and here in town, which will be happening on the 13th. So that's a way of getting an event back into the community. And my hope and strong desire is to have get back to those community Christmas concerts that we've had in years gone past, where the numerous different organisations and musical talents from around the area, which there are a lot of, were able to come together and celebrate the Christmas season and whatnot in a community gathering Christmas concert.
You know, in the past, there's been a lot of talk about someday having the band shell back in town. If that were to ever happen, I could see where the city could very easily and legally be involved in a band. I don't know, I'm interested in how you did it in Marshall. So,
It's not conditioned on the fact whether you have a band shell to.
yeah, I know it's not, but
The question is do you want to have some type of, in most cases, free community entertainment, whether that's at Dojinki, whether it's at the parades, whether it's a Christmas concert, their April event that they talked about, or other things of that nature. And as you take a look at it, you know, whether at the outset or the initial stage you agree to participate with funding of the band director, recognizing is that, okay, maybe it could turn into something more down the road, depending upon what discussions we'd have with the school as to is it better off that this would be something that we'd fund and provide funding to the school and they take care of it like they have been. What role should we play? That, as I said, I raised questions with Tim and taking a look at it is, okay, obviously if you're going to employ a part-time band director, you've got an employee, you've got work comp issue, and you've got some, they've got the TRA, the school retirement. If he was our employee, that it would be PERA based on working so many hours a year. You've got insurance liability that if the band goes and performs in other communities, and right now it's been under the auspices of the school through community education, do they recognize and know that as you take a look at it, is that entity performing under the umbrella of the school as volunteers, that that they're headed there and somebody became injured or was involved in a car accident? To what degree or role does insurance liability come into play as volunteers? Should we do this as joint powers? There's a number of those questions that I guess I'd want to explore with the school before we'd finally recommend what would be the best way to do this. But, short of taking a look at making any kind of final decision tonight, and I don't know that it was set up that it had to be that they were in just inquiring, is that we know that there's funding in place through the end of June. You've got monies in the mayor council contingency that potentially could be used if that was the route we wanted to proceed. The bigger question is what might we want to do long term? Can it be worked into the general fund budget? We just need to explore those options and alternatives to give you some good thinking in that regard.
Well, I would certainly like more information, and I'd like to maybe reapproach this in end of March or something. I mean, since it's already funded through June, their new fiscal starts July 1. But I'd like to see maybe a July 1 through maybe March 31st or something of theirs. But I'd like to see the effort that they're doing to reach out, and whether that is contact some businesses for possible sponsorship or more fundraisers and whatever else. I'd like to have that information along with the items you just listed, Mike, as far as, why did the school decide to drop it? What is the liability if we do fund it, and get some of those?
Well, the answer to your first question I can already answer, that in taking a look at it, the school has been funding it out of the community education budget fund balance. And so all of the other programs that existed out there, they took any of the excess funds that they had that exceeded expenses and they used that to then be able to pay the band director. So it was not a program that was generating any dollars. And most community ed programs, to put on a service or program under community ed, there's a fee that's charged for running that activity or whatnot, and then they take a look at the cost of doing that. In the case of this, the ban, as it's been in place the last few years, is that they took excess funds from the program events that were done, swept it over and kind of used it, to fund the band director's salary. Sure. And I think they've done a reassessment of whether that's really a good thing to be doing or not. And I think have concluded is that they can't continue to subsidize effectively that position. And short of it discontinuing or not existing, they were saying, well, maybe you need to go talk to the city about it, because under the statutes, there are some mechanisms available to us to consider for possible funding of that position or other expenses associated with the city band.
Right. Well, and if we did give money to the band, I'd like to see it maybe under the auspice of payment for community concerts, or set something up outside of Malistrana or at the park or something where it would be open to the public, and then we pay for that performance essentially, as opposed to just giving a particular amount, whether it's for the band's director or whatever. Maybe that we could get some type of benefit back to the community, basically, in the auspice of more than just 1 or 2 times a year with a performance. And I know you do 3 at Dozinki, so, but
all of that could be explored.
Right.
Can you look at and bring us back some options, Mike? Or
I think we can get together with, I've worked with Rush in the past, and I think we can have a conversation and talk with the school and maybe do some brainstorming as to how this might be able to be put together. And, the question or the exposure is are you looking at just solving the band director position, or would you be potentially acceptable to some other parts of that, or do you want us to kind of explore kind of the range of things that might be considered in this situation?
Well, I just look at it at not necessarily the band director. I mean, they're looking for $3,800, but which is the fee for the band director, but it's an in-kind donation, really, is what it is to the band. Is it not? I mean,
well, if you look at the additional pages that I included, the expectation is that, albeit maybe it's somewhat limited, is that the job description or the definition of work as of the fall of 2010, what they were expecting of the band director as far as assisting in the number of rehearsals that went on for the year, the number of performances, and the amount of hours of preparation, and that you can see the number of hours and the rate for that as to how they arrived at that general salary. That's what's been in place, good, bad, or indifferent. That's kind of been the layout of what conceptually got this off the ground.
I see. Okay.
So we can certainly explore some general concepts and some ideas and see what we can maybe put together, and then bring back an outline or a range of options if that would interest you.
I'd be interested in seeing different options.
But Amy,
Okay.
you've been
I
waiting
would-
patiently.
I would be in favor of, I think the community ban adds a lot to our community. But my question that's pointed out to me was in that statute about only being able for public grounds. So like traveling, if, that's why I'm thinking it would be better to be a partnership probably with the school or a joint. Because I don't know if this would limit them. Does it limit them then if it's only city funded? Because it says it has to be on, it would be in public buildings or public grounds, but if they go somewhere else, that wouldn't qualify. So I guess if
What
that
does
could
that mean,
also be
city?
evaluated.
Are you saying that that statute says it has to be your city public grounds?
That's,
That's
I
the
don't know.
implication,
Yeah,
as
I mean,
read
so
it.
I wouldn't want to limit them if that's, but so if that could also be explored when you look at it.
Yeah, at this point, we've not spent a lot of time other than conceptually looking at what ones might be applicable. And as Scott and I talked, that there's some conflict due to the age of some of these. There's some real conflict on which ones of these govern and how they govern. Because my question was to him that in trying to take a look at it is that, okay, you know, from being able to levy a tax under the one, but that's limited to so many dollars, I think, what was it, $3,500, well, how does that compare to if we just want to put it in our general fund and we're not issuing a specific tax for it, but it's included in our overall funding operation versus that which one has to go to a public vote versus where the council has the authority to spend money to provide free musical entertainment. That was probably the broadest one of all of them in there that we've got a lot of latitude and some scope to take a look at. But without knowing exactly what we're trying to focus on and answer, Scott and I couldn't answer at this point how these might be applicable and what works and what doesn't in regards to your question.
Okay. I guess, I don't know, a consensus of the council is we'd like to pursue this, unless I hear people's wrong, a consensus to pursue it further, being that we would be willing to be some kind of function of help funding the local community band, because in my opinion, it is a very, it is an asset to our community. So if that's in agreement with everyone, we can go forward on that, Mike. And I know, Sean, you said in March. I would like to see something in the first quarter.
Okay.
Because obviously that would give everyone ample time to kind of readjust to what's going on and understand all the nuances of everything so that it isn't a surprise when it comes July 1st. So.
Can we get an updated financial though, just to see how many pizza ranch nights that they've done and Pioneer Power, some of the fundraising aspects that they've done? I'd like to see an updated version of their expense, their budget essentially, to see, I mean, they have a lot of fundraisers and whatnot on here, and I think that's great. I just want to see that again.
Do you guys run
So
a,
they're not just relying on the city for, I want, you know, them to have some skin in the game as well, so.
do you guys run a calendar year on your budget?
School fiscal year,
It's
July
just
1, June
yeah,
30.
because
Oh,
the community education
okay.
is our fiscal agent. That's whenever we do a fundraiser or whatnot, all those monies go back through Janelle, and
Okay.
then she enters it, you know, however she needs to do that for her books.
Okay.
And that shows up on our balance.
Well, thank you for coming tonight, and
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate the
we'll
opportunity.
we'll let you know when we start addressing it in the first quarter.
And just one more thing for the record, Dave, I'll come back to your point about the band shell. Of course, I think I speak for all of us saying that I think that'd be a wonderful idea for the community. Not only for the community band, but I mean, I know it's been spoken about for many, many years now, and there's even been some work done in order to facilitate that actually happening and coming to fruition. But I think not only for the band, but it would be an opportunity for the city to have some positive fund from that particular, from a space which would provide, you know, all sorts of arts coming in and occupying that space, you know, year round if possible. So I think that'd be a wonderful idea.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Jim, are you still with us?
I am.
All right, you're next.
All right. There's a memo in your packet. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I'd like you to entertain appointment of Jessica Bourne for the position of police officer for the city. After the previous hire resigned after 11 weeks, the hiring list was reactivated. Some interviews were set up. Ultimately, Jessica Bourne was the top candidate. Jessica was born in, or raised in rural Janesville, received her Bachelor of Science degree in law enforcement at Mankato State University, and did her skills or clinicals through Hibbing Community College. She was hired by Leesore County Sheriff's Office May of 2012 as a 911 dispatcher and jailer. She then took the post-test, passed, and maintained her license as of July of 2013, while being employed with Waterville Police Department as a part-time officer. Jessica continued to develop herself professionally through her experience and training, and will be an incredible asset to our department. I would recommend that Jessica Bourne be appointed as police officer with an effective start date of December 8th, 2015. She would be on step 1 of the pay schedule matrix, as indicated in the memo. I would just ask for your indulgence in making that appointment, please.
Any questions? She would be our first
Email.
female officer.
Full-time female. We did have a part-time female apartment girl that worked for several years, Jolene,
Okay.
but she would be our first full-time female officer.
I make a motion to appoint Ms. Bourne as police officer.
I'm going to second it. Oh, come on, John.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That,
Oh, why? Because it's a female officer? So you gotta have, I'm sorry. Jeez. I'm all for it, too.
You guys are going to fight over it, we can hire another one.
Okay.
Motion by Amy Jurek, second by Jenna Tuma, and it has nothing to do with that.
That's fine.
You guys have been working a little overtime with all the seconds and firsts, so I got a first and a second. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Good. Okay, now we're at number 10A. It looks like there's only one person left in the audience. Mr. Price emailed me, I can't remember the exact date, regarding some concerns on English Avenue Northwest. And I told him that probably the best thing for him to do would be come in front of the council to discuss his concerns, and we can kind of go over it. I know in the packet it was in the more in the miscellaneous stuff in the back. There was a memorandum from Mike on it, in which Ken gave the background of what was going on from the city's standpoint. So, Mr. Price, you're welcome to come up to the microphone and let us hear your concerns.
Great, thank you. I appreciate you letting me come up, and I appreciate, Mayor, the suggestion of having me come in after my pretty forward email about what I think is a problem on English Avenue Northwest. I've owned a house there since September of 2014. We love New Prague. My family loves it here. I'm working at 2 different businesses within the town. My wife and I have pledged to spend all of our money within town to support local businesses whenever possible. My sons both go to school here, and I just love it here. I really do. People are so nice, and it's just small town America, and we love it here. My issue now comes to, there has been a lot of traffic on our road. There's a lot of traffic on English Avenue, period. Going into the subdivision, there's 2 entrances in coming from the south end of the subdivision. I think most cars choose to come in on English Avenue because that's the longer stretch that goes down, I would say roughly a 1/4 mile all the way down to the end of the road. And I also want say that I appreciate the mayor and the police. They put up a monitor system in the neighborhood, and I really appreciate that. That shows that they actually did something for somebody who is concerned about the traffic. I don't know exactly how the monitors work, and I don't know if I'm correct on this or not. So if I'm off base, please just tell me. The majority of the fast traffic is coming from the north end of the neighborhood. The monitor, I don't know if it works in both directions. Does it?
The speed trailer does not.
Okay.
That's just approaching where the display.
Right, okay.
Yep.
And we're, the best place, obviously, where they put it is the best place in the neighborhood to put it. The majority of the fast traffic is coming from the north end, and they seem to build up a lot of momentum coming up. And even if a lot of them are going the speed limit, which there's not a speed limit sign in the neighborhood that I've seen, I believe it's 30 miles an hour. I think that's too fast. There are so many kids in that neighborhood. I have 2 kids. There's 2 kids across the street, 2 kids next door, kids here, kids here. You go to the bus stop at the cul-de-sac down from Music Avenue and English Avenue, there's 12 kids alone out there every morning. The morning I sent the email to the mayor, my son and I were standing on the corner, and a car zoomed past us, probably going 40 miles an hour, and the person was texting, didn't even know we were there. If they would have hit us, they wouldn't even have known it. And so, of course, I went in and sent the email to the mayor, and I wasn't very happy when I sent it, and I'll admit it. But he immediately responded, and he immediately suggested, why don't you come to a city council meeting? And to me, that's the way to express your concerns about something like this, instead of getting angry about it. My suggestion is this, is that we are the last line of houses right next door to the high school. And 2 houses down from my house is the corner of English Avenue Northwest and Music Avenue. At that corner, there is a pedestrian walkway that goes across the street and between 2 houses. It's a tar path that brings you right to the high school. There's also a pedestrian yield sign right there on both ends. I would like to suggest a stop sign right there as well. If there's an issue with the speed limit, reducing the speed limit, and I know that I had suggested speed bumps, and that was sort of disqualified, I believe. So my email to the mayor suggested, why don't we have a stop sign here? Because there are kids crossing the street there all the time. High school kids that walk to school take that route to and from school, and there already is the yield sign right there. My belief is, and once again, you guys know, that if the law-abiding citizens were forced to stop for a stop sign, that's going to bring their speed down significantly instead of a quarter-mile run all the way up to the end of the street where they're building up a lot of speed and momentum. Once again, there are a lot of kids. The bottom line, I'm terrified that some kid is going to get nailed. My neighbors and myself have talked to me about this. I don't know what extent they approached it. They told me that they tried and nothing was ever done. There's 3 sets of neighbors other than myself that have resorted to getting those green figure signs of the kid holding up the slow sign because we feel helpless, because they're going fast in there. And the bottom line is, I'm worried my kid's going to get nailed. It's that simple. So I beg of you, I plead to do whatever we can to make that street safer somehow, because I know that's what you guys want too, whatever your decision is, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I've addressed this maybe, I guess, Ken, you were kind of, well, all 3 of you, Ken, Glenn, and Jim, were kind of involved in this situation. I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar. I mean, I know where English Street is. Is there any stop signs at all on English?
Not on English, no.
Not on English. All the stop lights are stop signs are on the cross.
Correct.
Correct? Yep. And how many intersections? I see just on the picture there's 2. how many more down the line?
Yeah,
3 total.
3 total, Music Street, Speech Street, and then where Art Street connects in at the very north end,
And the
which is off the map.
Yeah, and the yield sign is at Music.
Yes.
Pedestrian-
At the pedestrian
pedestrian
crossing.
crossing.
Yes,
Crosswalk.
It's
yeah,
an
I
actual
guess
yield
technically
sign?
it's not a yield
Pedestrian
sign.
crosswalk, the green
Okay.
pedestrian crosswalk
Yes.
sign.
Okay.
And do we have the ability to put up a stop sign if we so choose?
If we choose to, yes. Studies have shown, all done by MnDOT, and we hear this quite often, and I understand they think a stop sign actually slows people down. In all actuality, it most times speeds people up because they are trying to pick up what they lost stopping. So if you got most of the traffic coming from the north speeding, they're going to stop at that stop sign, and then at that point, they're going to go, wow, I am now 3 minutes later. So then they're really going to fly through. The other thing that kind of makes that not a great spot for a stop sign is right now, if you're crossing at the ped crossing, you actually know that nobody's going to stop. The law-abiding citizen will. If you got the citizen that's coming to that intersection and they're texting or doing something they're not supposed to be doing, unfortunately, the crosswalk gives a lot of people kind of a false sense of security. We actually stopped doing crosswalks at a lot of intersections for that reason. People think that the minute they're in those white lines or on those white squares that they can't hit me. Unfortunately, they can. So we feel that on a lot of these intersections, by not controlling it, unless there actually was a proven speeding problem, which then creates a whole nother issue, but by not controlling that intersection, we feel that we're making the residents or the people that live in that area be more cautious because of going into that crosswalk. And as you had commented that this person went by you because they were texting, that person probably would have ran that stop sign, and there would have been the false sense of security that, well, I can cross, it's a crosswalk, and I have a stop sign there.
And if I may, that's one example. Now, there's a lot more, and it's coming from both directions. So if all of that adds up, I'm not here to fight. What can be done? That's the question. And I really don't want nothing can be done because we're talking about my kid. We're talking about my 6-year-old and my 11-year-old who I'm worried are going to get hit by a car, and consensus and ideas why speed bumps won't work and why stops. Honestly, I just want something done about it. I mean, I really do. And if you lived where I lived and you had a young kid, you would be in here sitting right where I'm sitting. I promise you that.
Well, I think we can all.
My question is, in other parts of the city, we always seem to have stop signs like every other crossing.
No, that's changing.
And-
That
yeah,
was
but
a thing from the past.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was just, something that came across my mind. The thing that concerns me here is about this intersection is it is crossing and it is a direct path to the high school. If it was just a street crossing to someone's house, to me, but when it goes into the high school, to me it's causing that there's more kids than there's people living on English. That's my concern.
And there is a tar path. It's
Right.
literally
No, I can see it on the
between
picture.
houses that goes through.
Yeah, I can see it on the picture. That's, at least personally, that's my concern on it.
Which we have a number of spots like that, good or bad, right or wrong. I can appreciate the concern. I really can. I guess all I'm presenting is what we know has been proven. Some of the areas here in town that we actually eliminated stop signs, we've gotten responses back saying that I think it's made it safer because it's made us all think about it. That's what we know about maintaining the traffic or the signs on the road. We get requests quite often for a stop sign. I think I need a stop sign. Well, we'd have a stop sign at pretty much every intersection. And again, I can understand the concern and I can appreciate that. My kids were that age one time too. So all I know is what we know from all the different studies that have been done through the years, all the situations we've seen on the streets where we've actually opened up intersections, taken down stop signs, changed the rotation of the traffic stopping to kind of change the flow of traffic. This wouldn't, if you're following the guideline on where you're supposed to put street signs and stop signs, this would not warrant a stop sign. Stop signs, again, by every study that you'll ever hear or read about, stop signs do not slow down traffic. They stop traffic most times, and then those people are trying to make up time to get to the next intersection because I lost time back there.
May I make another suggestion? The neighborhood's been there for over 11 years without a stop sign. That's plenty of time to make studies. Why not try a study with a stop sign? And then if that doesn't work, get rid of it. Why not? I mean, I have kids I'm worried about. I can't accept this. I can't. I can't accept anybody appreciating my concern. I can't accept somebody doing something about it. If not the stop sign, can we do speed bumps? Is that something we could do?
I want to add too, I get a lot of these speed study requests every year throughout town. I think I did 8 this year. And there's always, and I hate to tell people, they don't like to hear it, the perception when you're standing there is speed is much faster than it really is. And
I was told that as well.
Yep.
So if that's the case, the speed limit's too fast because cars are barreling through there.
I would disagree with that.
Well, how
There's
come,
a state
how
statute.
come folks would disagree over something as simple as the safety of my children when all it requires is a possible speed bump or a stop sign?
I'll tell you why. I have 2 small children as well, both in elementary school. I teach them not to play in the street.
Well,
and I
so
don't have to
do
worry
I.
about
And
it.
you know, you can't pull that. You can't say that. The parents are so overly concerned about their kids. We get together and talk about how we can keep our kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
See, I really think it's a case of you need to put the shoe on the other foot and be on a street where the traffic is going that
I
fast.
live on a street that's very similar, sir.
Okay, so what was your concern about being in your house and seeing your kids, like I said, when I was out, and almost seeing my kid get run over? And, you know, I've been talking to a few people at where I'm employed and all this, saying that there's an issue with a lot of fast traffic within the city, and I can't quote that. That's just, I don't want to go on hearsay. I don't want to do anything like that. And you guys are patrolling the area all the time. I see you guys in there all the time, you know? So my goal is not to come in here and fight or disagree with you. My goal is to make it safe for my kid to where I'm comfortable. And it's not just me, it's the neighbors in the whole area. I mean, if I need to come in here with every one of them, I'll do it, if that's what I need to do. I mean, I think this is a just cause, the safety of my children.
Chuck, where's the traffic coming from? Is it just the neighborhood? Is it just a
residential,
It's not a
yeah.
through street that people
No.
are driving. So it's
Well,
the neighbors.
it either comes from the end of the neighborhood.
Yep.
Or it comes from, what is that, the main street outside, is that
12th
12th Street,
12th.
sorry, 12th Street. They come in from there.
So is there just certain I mean, it doesn't look like, I mean, it looks like a big neighborhood, but not super big. Is there certain families that the cars belong to that you can ID them and say, oh, that's the Johnson family?
I think there possibly is. There's a lot. I mean, it's not like it's just 2 cars. There's a lot of cars doing it. And I'm telling you, they gain a lot of speed coming from the end of the neighborhood. They really do, with nothing to stop or slow them down.
Is there some enforcement we can add to it?
Yeah,
or-
I can look at more directed enforcement, and that would be my first plan. My second plan would be, hey, I can get together with you and we can come up with a
Sure.
Facebook posting, and I can put it on my Facebook page or the police department's, just voicing your concern and what we are going to do, and I can do directed patrol there. I do get concerned about placing stop signs that shouldn't be placed. For instance, I was driving tonight before the meeting down 3rd Street over by Chalupski, which that stop sign is wrong. You're coming on 3rd Street to Chalupski and you have through. It goes to a dead end and Chalupski is stopped. And it's stopped to slow down traffic on Chalupski. When I'm driving, I don't have a stop sign, but I stop because that is the through street to me. Chalupski is. So it's not appropriate just to put signs out for whatever reason. So I want to avoid that, but we can do some of the directed patrol. We have a laser that we can put up, and if one of the officers is posted on one end, then we can get their speed coming down that first block up to Music Street there. So we can do some of that. I'll help. I'll elicit your help with the
Absolutely.
Facebook post. I can come up with it, and I'll run it by you. I have your email. Those are two things that I would want to do right away.
I'm willing. Absolutely, I'm willing. I am willing to do what it takes.
And I agree. I could throw out any percentage, but the majority of people that access there in that neighborhood do use English. I think you're right there, unless they are on the west side of it. But I think some of the other traffic that comes from the neighborhood is some of the residents are middle school, high schooler kids getting that age where they may have 4 or 5 friends come over, and that's a lot of traffic after school.
It's amazing how much traffic there is. It really is. It's
Yeah.
surprising how much traffic there is flowing in that neighborhood.
I think while the trailer was there and right after we moved it when school started, I was up there for 4 days after school running radar. At that time, I did not see a speeding issue. I had the laser and I'd be hitting vehicles both directions. But we can go there, especially if we put it out on Facebook that, hey, we're going to do more enforcement here. Nobody has a complaint about getting a speeding ticket then.
Great. And just to let you know, my counsel at home, my wife, said to come in and speak my piece, and hopefully something will be done. And if it doesn't, do what you can, and that's about the best you can do. So I do appreciate you guys letting me come in and talk about this. It's very important to me.
And did you answer earlier that in doing the speed study, you had the device that was up that measured direction?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you were able to, I don't know if you got his question answered.
Yeah, actually, we track which direction the cars go. It's obviously pretty even going north-south. And actually, our traffic radar recorder showed that speed was actually, during the week that I did this back in July, was faster going north than south, but it was similar. So there wasn't a whole lot of variance there. But yeah, by far, this is about the minor collector range for traffic for a road, which is what the road English Avenue is. So it's not unexpected. I guess I would note too, we do have SEH as a city engineer, and Chris Cavitt's not a traffic expert, but Mike Kotola with their firm is. Probably wouldn't hurt to just run the scenario past him and just get another opinion. I don't know what other physical options there might be out there other than enforcement or whatnot, but I don't think it would hurt, and it wouldn't cost much of anything at all to do that. He could take a look at our traffic data from this year, and then we had one back in, I think it was 2010, see if there's any correlation to increase in, there's not that many more houses now today than there were in 2010, but there's a few more. And
there's more coming in, too.
Yeah, there's going to be more. That is 100% true. There's going to be a number of more houses in there.
I guess you did your study in July.
Yes, not during school.
Right, and I think
True.
this school year is probably a more indicative of
It's
of-
accelerated, absolutely.
of the kids, more traffic, because obviously as kids get over, I mean, I know, my kids, once they hit high school, I could finally find a spot to park in my yard.
I believe Mr. Price also had another question, and Glenn, help me, I'm trying to remember correctly. He asked a question about speed limit signs. It's my understanding residential neighborhoods and communities are posted, are 30 miles an hour, and that's regulated by the state, and we can't necessarily put in something at a lower speed, so we don't have the luxury of that. I believe that's statutorily dictated in that sense.
Correct.
So it wasn't that we didn't consider those options. It's some we don't have the authority or control to do, and that would be one. And then the other one is speed bumps per se, that installing asphalt bump strips throughout the communities from snow plowing and maintenance and other things, we typically wouldn't do that as a tool to try to do that. It might work in parking lots and other situations like that, but just out on normal city streets, we wouldn't typically just put raised asphalt to try to slow traffic down. That again.
Yeah, you're correct. And, the other thing that, and again, this doesn't, you're worried about your neighborhood, and I totally understand that. The thing that we have to kind of also weigh too is if we put a speed bump there, we'll have speed bumps all over town. Because everybody's got kids, everybody thinks that people are speeding by their house, things like that. But speed bump causes a lot of maintenance headaches. You got to put up a sign marking the speed bump. Some areas you got to light that sign, because if somebody's going down the road, hits that speed bump and wrecks their car, then they're suing somebody because you put something in the road that's not supposed to be in the road. Parking lot's a whole different situation. Residential streets or collector roads, it's just not the place to put them.
And I understand that to an extent.
Okay.
So the two that we can do is we can check with the city engineer and then also work with the police department to see if we can look at some other enforcement alternatives in the neighborhood.
Okay.
One more analysis with the black box.
Do those at any time of the year, actually. That's a nice part about that. Right
No,
on
but I
time.
mean during the school year. I think Chuck made a good point
yeah.
that this was done in July.
Yeah, actually, that'd probably be good information for the engineer to look at anyway.
Yeah.
I can put that up, this week.
Sound good, Mr. Price?
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me. I appreciate you guys hearing me out. As you can tell, I'm passionate about it, and I'm concerned. And I just want to reiterate that we love living here. We really do. We love the people, the schools, and just the fact that I can come in here and speak to you guys on something like this makes me happy. It really does. And thank you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your time and your concerns, and hopefully some of the stuff that goes into place solves the issue. Okay. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Anyone have any questions, concerns, or issues on any of the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Dave Brusick to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? I guess I'll make a second.
I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, I'll make the second. So if there's no other discussions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. The big number 12, miscellaneous. Bruce, you got anything? No. I want to thank you very much again for your presentation on the budgets and for staying all day too. You didn't bail like Patty, so we'll put that in your employment file there. All right. Jim, you have anything?
Nothing other than Parade of Lights went well. It was well attended, nice weather. I did attend Montgomery's the night before and observed that they had a trailer pulled by a city vehicle with the city council on it. Just food for thought.
And I hate to say it, I was on that trailer.
Down there?
Yes, I was. We had the sewer mayor. We were on that trailer because we get invited by Gene. And someone asked me if I was going to the event on Friday, and I said, I've never been invited by the Chamber of Commerce. Even when Christy Mock was there as the director, I've never been invited to participate in that parade, which is fine. I was out of town anyways, but...
Probably because you're busy in Montgomery.
A traitor.
Yeah. Hey, it's LeSueur County. I'm trying to spread the... But yes, they had a nice event, and they always do it at Montgomery. I think they had 40 units, and it was very nice, well received for that community. So, and I didn't see you there. You didn't see me waving at you?
I saw you waving.
Yeah. Glenn, do you have
nothing
anything?
else.
I have nothing.
In?
Nothing.
Okay. Patrick. Mary Jo, you've been so quiet.
He always is.
Yes. Sean?
Not a thing.
David?
Nothing.
Jenna?
I'm good.
Amy?
No.
Well, Mike, I forgot about you. I'm sorry.
I have nothing.
I'm sorry. I was going around the room and I was just having so much fun. I just have a couple quick little things. I know that the last meeting we did send the farm animal issue to back to the Planning Commission, and I did get a phone call, in regards to that. And one of the concerns they had was the avian bird flu type deal.
Yep, I think
issue.
I got the same call.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing is, I know we've talked about it when we did the golf budget, but I think we should look at, and I think Jenna was talking about some kind of a discount for city employees and that sort of thing, part of the wellness part of the benefit package on the golf course. I think that's something I would like to really look into, maybe the first quarter before the golf season starts. That's all I have. Anything else? I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Amy Jerk. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone.